Hi, it's Joe Morgan with the Tech Leader Spotlight podcast, where we interview tech leaders to learn about their journey and leadership lessons learned along the way. This show is brought to you by the Tech Professional Money Operating System, where we help tech professionals who know they're doing well financially, but want to make sure that they're using their resources in the right way. So, for example, we help you invest cash wisely, make the most of stock awards, minimize your tax bill, and overall create clarity and confidence so you can spend time doing the things you want rather than time being concerned about your money. If you'd like more information, look me up on LinkedIn. That's Joe Morgan at Best Financial Life. Today, I'm very happy to have on the podcast Fernando Lopez, who is a software engineer at Lyft. And Fernando is an experienced leader who specializes in exploring the human-centric intersection between engineering and education. Welcome to the podcast, Fernando.
Thank you very much, Joe. Very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So, exploring the human-centric intersection between engineering and education. Tell me what that phrase means to you.
Sure. I've been a software engineer for 25 years. By the way, I should preface by saying that even though I'm currently employed by Lyft, like my thoughts are my own. And
Yes.
same for Northeastern University, where I also am a part-time teacher. Um, I've been doing software engineering again for 25 years or so. And during this time, I have had the chance to reflect on what is the mission of an engineer. It is not really to talk to machines, it is to provide value to people. And based on this realization is that most of my professional experience has been done in this interaction between systems and people. When we create a system, it is pretty much so that we can make people work better so that they can have some value. At the same time, we must be aware that whenever we do something, it's it has to start and end thinking of what is the consequence that this is going to have with users and whoever is asking for the system to be made. So that's what I mean. And where the education part of the equation comes is the fact that at the same time, I've also had stints teaching. I come from a family of teachers, my mom, my dad, and my brothers. Everybody has been at a teaching position at some point or is still in one. So it comes from family. It's very much for me very appreciative uh, the fact that I can provide some of my knowledge and my experiences to people that are trying to do the same thing that I'm doing every day for the betterment of themselves. So for me, that's another dimension that comes into the question when you talk about what does an engineer do. If you want to progress in your career, you will want to become somebody that creates more people like themselves. And how do you do that? Through education, through things like this podcast, for example, right? Trying to put these ideas into the minds of more people and hoping that they resonate and they help them progress.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great answer. I love that. What I was sitting here thinking as you were talking through everything was you're very focused on the human component and the people success component, which is I don't want to say different than, but it is maybe additive to the traditional definition of, like, as you put it, working on machines, right? Doing the programming and just having the machine work. And now in this, world of AI and AI doing programming and all of that, the human component, the human connection, not that it was less important before, but it's kind of the main thing that we as humans can focus on because that's one thing that at least for now AI can't really do. Would you agree with that, or what part of that would you disagree with?
I don't think you have like I don't think you are saying anything wrong here. It makes a lot of sense to think of the humor, sorry, of the human, the user, uh, again, beginning and end of the equation and also the middle. And in this middle part, if we create things with AI, even though at this point it's possible to just ask the AI to generate code, we as engineers are still responsible making sure that that code actually makes sense for the people that are supposed to make sense to. What I mean to say is that the actual core of the engineering work has not changed. We are
Yeah.
still doing things for people. AI is changing how we work. It is changing the rules. It is definitely true that we cannot do the same stuff in the same way. But that doesn't mean that we have to forget about the basics. And for me precisely one basic part of being probably not just an engineer, but any kind of professional is to be centered on what is the kind of value that you're providing. And as long as that happens, I don't think doing it with AI or not is going to make any difference.
Yeah, that's great. So, I already love where this conversation is going. And our first questions, I'm excited to hear your answer to this in the context of what we just talked about. So, what does leadership in the tech space mean to you?
Right. Yeah, that was an excellent question that I think I've heard so many different answers. For me, the question of leadership comes down to three principal factors: authority, direction, and service. Authority, in that whenever you are a leader, you're supposed to be seen, and you get this authority through respect. How do you get respect? From the experience, from the commitment to your craft, and pretty much from the people that you work with and those you work for. So that's authority that you use as a resource to generate direction. The direction is uh, pretty much what you are for there. Like you're supposed to be providing other folks the ability to know what they are doing and or where we are going for whatever you're leading, right? And the funny thing here is that I might be talking about a team or a company or a family or an association, or it could be me talking through the internet or in front of the class. In the end, this authority and direction combination is always present. The
Hmm.
third component I was mentioning is service. You need to be doing this with an attitude of serving the others. If you are trying to just have personal gain, then you are at the wrong place and you are ultimately not going to help other folks. Uh, the most important thing is if you are concerned about the effect of what you are doing is having on those people, you're in effect serving them. And from that, you gather more authority. So it becomes this virtuous cycle where you
Hmm.
can uh, be much of a leader, even though you might not have the rank of a leader of the leadership, but people are going to give you that authority without necessarily having the title, right? That's where you actually become a leader.
So, authority, direction, and service, and they kind of loop maybe a little bit, lead back to each other. Is there, now we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Is there, just generally thinking about leadership, is one of these more important than the other?
I wouldn't say so. I think they complement each other. But there is a path towards that, right? You have to start somewhere, and it's obviously nobody like leads from a place of knowing it all.
Hmm.
So being humble, recognizing your mistakes, and starting from scratch, uh, that's probably the best way to start, and learning as you go, right? That's how you gather your first authority. Now, on the service part, that you should be having from the get-go, right? I feel like no matter where I go, I see people that does their things with a lot of gusto, with a lot of
Mm,
passion for what they do.
mm,
And that's what you say, oh, this person is made for service, right? Not there's people that don't ultimately like that particular part of the job. But even when they don't, when they are promoted to a position when they have to lead, they have to learn how to serve
yeah,
because that's the part that they are lacking. And you can learn it, even if you don't like it, and you can become a great leader out of it. It's just part that you need to balance out, right? And
yeah.
direction, I think, it's a consequence of all of this, right? If you have enough knowledge about your craft, if you have the visibility to know uh, what is going on the outer circle of your company, outside in the industry, if you see the patterns of the users that you serve or the general society, you can begin to create a mental image of your mind of, oh well, this is where we are supposed to go to. And now with this authority, I can propose this particular direction for us to follow because I really believe that this is the beginning of something great. And then I propose it, and then we can all figure out if this is the right way to go because it doesn't have to be a solo act. It definitely needs to be a shared uh, thing. Whenever we take a direction, I am putting the lead, but we are all taking the action, right? So
Mm. I think this is the first time on the podcast that somebody's given an actual framework for leadership and how it might work best. So I appreciate the thought that you've put into this. Is this something that you came up with for the podcast, or is this something you've thought about over the years?
I think this is the first time that I put it in the words.
Mm,
Uh, but I like these are pretty much things that I keep coming
yeah.
coming back to, especially the service part. Uh, to tell you the truth, I did not want to become like a formal leader
Mm,
at my current organization. I have been in the past. It requires something special to be a great leader.
mm,
In this part of my professional life, I decided to become more of a deeper software engineer, but there's leadership also in that. If you are knowledgeable, if you want to give out of yourself, there's a leadership as well. That's also why I was mentioning. You can also be a leader if you are a good mentor or a teacher in front of a class.
yeah.
That's the direction that I'm trying to take. But in the end, I feel it's components that are like differently arranged, but it's in the end going back to the same. It's
Yeah.
you create authority, you put a direction for the others, and you tie up with service.
That's great. That having a model like that laid out is so helpful. So thank you for that. Given all the challenges in the job market today, what piece of advice would you recommend for people to create resiliency?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've had so many of my colleagues uh, not just asking me, but just having conversation about this
Yeah.
because of the uncertainty in the recent years. First, by just looking at so many companies that lay off uh, just for a like for a fact that your job is no longer secure, right? You don't know when that's going to happen, and I'm not talking about Lyft. I'm talking about the industry in general.
Hmm.
So that's one thing, and the other thing is, of course, the advent of AI that many people equate to, oh, so now LLMs can do the job that I was supposed to do. So there's not
Mm,
going to be an opening for me, which is just to say it's going to be tougher to get a new job if you don't have any experience.
mm,
And I see that with my students. That doesn't mean that there is no way to do it. It's just that it's a bit tighter. It's a bit more complex. So what I think about a lot of this, about the resiliency part, applies both for those new folks as well as people like me that have been in the industry for a while. We have to be always ready for any changes that might come up. That means we need to, you know, sharpen our tools.
Hmm.
You never know when you're going to need to use your machete to cut up some grass in the field.
Right.
So a good idea is probably having 1 or 2 hours dedicated during the week or every 2 weeks to study some algorithms, or very much for people that don't have this experience yet at their jobs, try to figure out how to work with the LLMs. Create some side projects that use them and figure out how to best use them, because that is going to be an essential part of our careers from now on. Like
Mm.
that's already there. And those are the two things that are important for the sake of our profession. But apart from that, financially speaking, uh, just knowing how much one is earning and how much one is spending
Mm.
is essential, because sure, at any point in time, we might become unemployable for who matters what, right? I don't know why, but if you at least have control of how much you are spending, now it becomes much less of an issue if you suddenly are in that situation where you don't have a job anymore. I will say that those are the first two things, and the third thing that actually is not on my notes, but it's just coming up to me is, well, you have to have a good mental space.
Mm.
Uh, I've had issues in the past with managing stress, for example.
Hmm.
And I know that's the case for many people in my industry. That's why
Hmm.
I keep reiterating to my friends and to people in my class, you have to take care of yourself, right?
Hmm.
If we get hit by a curveball and suddenly we are without a job, that's when we need that the most.
Mm.
So having strategies to focus on our craft, on ourselves, and on our health are going to make us more resilient in the long run. Even if we are already in a job or we are doing well of it, it can also happen that we just run too fast. Just that can lead to burnout. So I think that those three things will be what I will suggest. Again, having some time to devote to your craft, no matter if you already have a job. Financially speaking, keeping control of your expense, and having a good space, mentally speaking.
Yeah. I can tell you, and you probably know this, that most people shy away from looking at their spending. I mean, I see this all the time, with the job that I have and the people that I work with. And that's okay. I mean, I think that's a I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but there's something in us that makes us think that if I look at my spending, that means I have to reduce it. And that's not at all, I don't think that's at all what you're talking about. What you're talking about is you have to know what your spending is. What is the price tag of your lifestyle? Because whether you know what it is or not, you're going to have to meet it. And so it's much better to know what that is than to not. So if there's some way, and maybe this is being in a good mental space, if there's some way you can get in the right mental space where you can observe what your spending is without that judgment, then that is so very helpful. Now, I know a lot of people are, I know several people, many people, that's the most, that can do this and do this pretty easily. Most people, it's a challenge because we're just not wired that way.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Tell me this, sticking on the financial side, what's the most important financial decision that you've made in your tech career?
I will say having some basic financial education. You see, I come from Mexico, and Mexico has a lot of resources, but they are very badly distributed.
Mm.
So add to that the fact that financial education is the exception. rather than the norm. Nobody is having a course on how to control their finances. At school, this is completely unheard of.
Yeah. Here too. It's the same here. We don't talk about, we learn, what is the old joke? We learn about parallelograms, but we don't learn how to do our taxes.
Right. And add to that the fact that doing taxes here in the US is extremely complex
It's
compared with.
crazy. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think precisely because of that, it's hard for the common folk to get a grasp of how should I be thinking about money? How I should be thinking about resources. For me, financial education means precisely that, and also means to recognize what resources you do have. And that includes not just money, but also time, energy. A good friend of mine used to say that we have a limited amount of energy during the day, and it is up to us how we manage that energy.
Mm,
As time progresses, that becomes more and more true, right? Because that energy plus time plus your effort is what you can uh, you can use to make work that gives
yeah.
you money, that creates value.
Yeah.
So
Or
in
do
the
things
end,
that you enjoy, or at some point during the day, you just run out
yeah,
of
of course.
energy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you just said something great there. You should, you could and should also be using that for things that you enjoy. It's not always going to be work. You need to have everything in your life. Like you need to have work, you need to have rest, you need to have fun.
Yeah.
And those three things must exist. And two of those are going to spend energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that sense, as you as a person become aware of your resources, to start figuring out how you should be spending them, and that means having a budget, right?
Mm,
Like you say, looking at how much you spend doesn't mean that you have to cut it, but it means that you can control it. You can decide
mhm.
to do it, or you can decide, oh, I actually have more to spend. I can use it in XYZ, right? For me, when I learned about concepts such as liquidity or debt control or diversification or even like risk, that opened up the pathways that I was lacking in terms of how to plan for my future.
Mm,
And this was even when I was not earning a lot. I
mhm,
will even say, thanks to that mental framework, I was able to discern when I needed to change directions.
mm.
And well, the other big part that is probably not directly related, but I actually helped me probably much more is getting luck of having a wife that is also very well financially educated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Being on the same page.
oh yeah, being on the same
Yeah.
page is totally something that helps a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. But the same page educationally, you kind of have to get there before you can be on the same page with strategy. So how did you said, you didn't have classes about finances. We don't have classes in the US either. But you obviously have this basic financial education. How did you get that?
I will say books and the internet. Nowadays, there are so many good resources online.
Hmm.
And because I'm just talking about the basics, that's information that you can pretty much find if you look for it. You
Yeah.
just know, you just have to know what to look for. Uh, so pretty much any kind of intro class to anything is useful, but so is useful to have a YouTuber that is talking to you about these basic concepts and then you can explore them on your own.
Yeah.
So I remember that I was reading one specific book that was tailored for Mexicans that wanted to save. I don't remember the name of the book, but it was like a gold book with a piggy bank on the front. And
Hmm.
it was very good in that moment because it was talking to the average person, the average Mexican that is in the working class, and that doesn't know that all of these options are available to them. Now, here in the US, there are even more options. But because of that, you have to be more aware of what they mean. But again, all of the information is out there. Uh, and there's people that has done the hard work of compiling it, distilling it in a way that is understandable for people like you and me. So if there's anything that I would recommend to people watching this video is that just get yourself a basic sense of financial education with these like basic topics, liquidity, depth, risk, and how to diversify your assets, and getting hold of knowing what you have, not just in terms of money, but also in terms of all those resources that we spoke, and figuring out how to make them work for yourself.
Yeah, that's great. I produced a series of 52 financial tips, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. And I still send them out once a week to folks. And I always get good comments on that. So, that's a good place to get tips, I think, is people in my industry giving financial advice. But be careful that you're getting the tips from people who are not trying to sell you something, people who are just purely interested in education,
Sure.
to make sure, and then filter it, translate it into your life, because not everything's going to be applicable. Well, thanks so much, Fernando, for joining us on the podcast. You've given us a lot to think about today.
Thank you very much, Joe. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Terrific. Just as a reminder, this is sponsored by the Money Operating System, where tech leaders gain clarity and control of their finances so they can live out the rest of their life with intention. If you want to know more about us, look me up on LinkedIn, Joe Morgan at Best Financial Life.